Hey, and welcome everybody. It is Team Nation back with you. I am your co-host, Troy Blankenship. I'm with my co-host, Lauren Hall. Lauren, how are you?
Hey, Troy. So good. How are you doing?
I should say the great Lauren Hall. I've been slacking off on that the last couple of times. I don't know why. It's the great Lauren Hall. It's not Lauren Hall. It's the great Lauren Hall.
We're going to switch. You're great, Troy. The greatest co-host I could ask for and an amazing hypnotist. I really do on my off time, like think about ways that I could come up with your nickname, like Terrific Troy or something like that. So stay tuned for your intros. Troy, this is our 11th episode.
It's kind of hard to believe, isn't it? You know, when this was all kind of, it was just, I know we spoke about this before, but it's just kind of amazing. I mean, we're on episode 11. Mm-hmm. And just a couple of short months ago, we were just having conversations just like this about, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we had a podcast and it's centered around these concepts and these ideas? And now here we are with a finished product, on episode 11. It's kind of hard to believe, but it's also rewarding too.
It's so rewarding. And, a ton of podcasts like get published and it's super easy and growing for people to launch a podcast. But if you look at the numbers, most fade off after 10. So we should celebrate we're here at number 11. And I love the number 11. Like whenever, oh my gosh, it's 11:11 right now, actually on the clock. Wow. Well, I guess, yeah, we're close to noontime, Eastern Standard Time. Do you ever notice that, Troy, like synchronization on numbers?
I notice that all the time. 111, 1111, 222, 444. I just noticed 444 yesterday afternoon. I don't know what it is. It's very it's strange, but I don't know. I chalk it up to kind of a fortuitous moment. So I just, it's funny. So when I see the clock and it's like this, or even 10:10, right, or 12:12.
Oh, I've never seen that one. I don't think 10:10.
Yeah, I've seen some. But what I do, it's funny, right? So I'll notice the time and I'll literally stop. And I'll just take a couple deep breaths and I'll just kind of experience the moment, right? Try to ground myself into that moment. I don't know what it is. It's just like a reset, It's just like, I'm going to breathe in this energy, I'm going to breathe in this, good feeling and just kind of reset. I might close my eyes for a moment or two and then I'm back at work. But unless I'm doing a podcast with you or something like that, I normally pause and I'll just take in that moment.
You could take a pause. I think our listeners would be supported by us reminding people how necessary breathing is. Of course, that's obvious. You are breathing and you have to breathe, but we know most people really don't take that time. We get so into the brain, but it's the subconscious, which is always present about what's happening in the body. And I would say it's really always present as to what time it is, like an internal clock. So maybe just unconsciously glance over at clocks to reaffirm that we're in some sort of like flow or synchronization or whatever, appreciation we have for, numbers. There's numerologists that I've met and I find that really interesting. We'll bring one on, but I brought a guest on today.
Yes. Who do we have?
Hi, this is Anna Richardson. How are you?
We're great. Thank you, Anna, for being here.
Thank you for having me on. And I'm right there with you with the 111, those numbers. I do the exact same thing, Troy.
Yeah. Do you notice these things? Do you notice the time almost on a daily basis or, every couple of days or something like that, where it's like that?
Yeah, on a regular basis. Absolutely. And I do the same thing. I just pause and it just makes me smile. It kind of grounds you, just like you said.
I don't know what it is. There's just something special about that moment. And then sometimes it's funny, right? So like on my phone or on my computer, it'll give you like the second count. So if it's like 4:44, I'll wait until it's like 4:44 and then 44 seconds. And that 1 second is so special.
That's awesome.
Anna, how long have you done that? Is that just something like as a kid that you were like present to, grounding yourself?
It's probably, I've been into like spirituality for a long time. And I think probably since my early 20s, I guess, was when I started noticing what I guess I've heard it referenced as angel numbers, the 111, and it being to do with the presence of divine energy around you. So yeah, it's always kind of made me pause and I always smile when I see those numbers. In fact, my daughter was actually born at 1:11 a.m. in the morning, which I think is really cool.
Well, Anna, you're in the right spot because you're on episode 11. And as Lauren just pointed out a few minutes ago, it was 11:11. here on East Coast time.
Yes,
So I guess that means that this was meant to be, to have you on.
definitely. And congratulations on your 11th episode.
Well, you're sharing that success with us, so we're happy to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it really is about having, clients, people that were open enough to hypnosis to have an experience and then be willing to talk about that experience. This is not a scripted podcast. We're not telling you to read us something that you've already decided on what you're going to say. It's just an organic, real world. This is what, Anna and hypnosis have had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember before you did hypnosis, what your opinions or beliefs? I mean, how did that word come across your, to be considered?
Well, so I had heard of hypnosis as a young kid. I mean, we'd see, stage hypnosis on television. So that was my very first understanding of what hypnosis was, which obviously is not what it is in reality.
Mhm.
So I can't remember where I originally heard about using it as a therapy, but I did come across it when I lived back in London, and I did go see a lady, and I only went there one time. I went there for a specific phobia, and I ended up talking myself out of it. The experience itself wasn't a bad experience at all, and I don't think I was mentally prepared when I went in there. I wasn't sure what to expect. Um, but I think I ended up talking myself out of it and getting a little frightened and not going back to her. And it wasn't until I met you that I experienced what hypnosis is truly about.
I'm just curious. So you didn't go through with that session?
I had one session with the
You had
lady.
one session. So what was it about it that you just kind of that seemed that it kind of brought up this fear or this avoidance to it? What was that about?
So it wasn't anything that she had done wrong. In fact, I don't remember much of the session itself. I think I was just so deep in trance. But I think afterwards I talked myself out of it. I started to think that she might make me relive the situation, and it just brought up so much fear and panic for me. I just wasn't in a mental place to go through with it again. So sadly, because now I know how incredible and life-changing hypnosis is and how much suffering I could have avoided all these years had I known. And so, yeah, it wasn't anything specific that she had done.
Mm-hmm. And every hypnotist is going to have their own styles. And I know some hypnotists that really get a lot of success, and they do um, techniques that I don't use. Particularly they might lead off with, aversion or vivification. Techniques that really help present to the subconscious that the fear is irrational, even though we probably already know the fear is irrational. But my techniques usually just stair step and start off with ego strengthening, because I want people to feel comfortable. And I feel like hypnosis is already sort of stigmatized, or people feel nervous about that. And so I don't want them to come in with this stress of hypnosis plus their issue, like let's just make it a simple way to achieve a lasting goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think to your point there, Lauren, I think people are nervous because they just don't know. There's a fear, or there's an uncertainty, or there's an anxiousness over the unknown. And their mind is telling them, oh, it must be like this or it must be like that. And it's just, it's interesting. People that come into me, they're like, oh, that's how it works. That's how it happens. Wow, I had no idea. But yeah, the initial unknown is what generates that fear, and then of course your brain takes over the rest of that. And then, like Anna was saying, it's, well, I'm going to avoid this. And as she said, she could have probably avoided a lot of the pain or suffering or whatever she was dealing with, if she had actually gone through and not listened to that little internal voice in her head all those years ago.
Well, we're talking about synchronization, so it all worked out in the right way that it did. There was even a woman that I was talking with yesterday who I had done hypnosis with her 4 months ago for a phobia, and I was just following up to see how things were going, and she's had really great results. So we'll bring her on and see if she wants to be interviewed too. But it was funny because she was saying that after the session, Anna, she probably felt the way you did. She felt a little bit uneasy about it because she had kind of thought that it would be different than what it was. I mean, I didn't do any sort of aversion, so it wasn't a negative experience. But what we were talking about yesterday is in our hypnosis session, she almost was waiting for it to start. Like the whole time she was sort of like, when is it going to start? And then it's over. And she's sort of like, wow, this didn't feel like what I thought it would feel like. Cause she thought I had some magic word, even though I tell people in my pre-talk, there's not some magic, hand gesture. I'm not going to like pull out a swinging watch and then just, trance you into an unconscious state. But yeah, I think when you have a phobia, particularly, it's important to be supported that you're not going to feel a negative way. So I'm glad, Anna, that whatever path had brought you, to keep considering hypnosis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was kind of meant to be.
Definitely. Yeah. I had that same experience as you just mentioned with your other client. I had an amazing experience with you, Lauren, and I'm very grateful that we met.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easy, like you said, it was just like having a normal conversation and you're waiting for it to start.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so simple. And you have a really amazing way of just putting people at ease. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed the experience, and I enjoyed the whole ego strengthening experience too. And your style, your approach was amazing.
Thank you so much. Wow, I really appreciate that you were supported by this thing that Troy and I find so interesting, which is why we want to have a podcast to just broadcast that people can use these techniques in their everyday life. And so we did a couple of sessions, and it is sort of subtle. Don't you feel like when you start to notice that things are shifting? Because I remember our conversations, you were having this seemingly subtle shift. And then I would say, hey, but that thing used to knock you off course for a couple of days. And if it's only knocked you off for a couple of hours and then you got right back on track, like, isn't that a win that we could celebrate? And
oh yeah, absolutely. It was subtle to begin with. And then, after a few weeks, I did notice some really big changes, things that would really just put me into a spiral and take an entire day to, get me back into calibrating my nervous system after the shock. I didn't experience that, and I haven't, since we've worked together, I haven't had any issues so far, thank God. And everything feels a lot easier and lighter and more positive, and I'm so grateful because it really impacted my life for so many years. So I'm truly grateful that we worked together.
yeah, it was so rewarding to support you, because to know the passion that you have yourself, for working with people and the open-mindedness. You already, I think, were studying NLP before we even did hypnosis.
Yeah, I'd studied some NLP and started to become interested in hypnosis and how that all worked. Very interested in how the mind worked and how, our nervous systems are responsible for how we behave. Yeah, all of it.
Yeah. And so it was your interest that I really was just, uber excited to pull every tool that I have out, not to use on you, but to teach to you so that you can apply it in your own life. Do you feel like you're doing self-hypnosis more intentionally now? Because it sounds like you already kind of intuitively had been doing it.
Yeah, I think it's such an amazing tool to have, and I think everybody should be doing it. Probably people do it without realizing it's hypnosis because there is still such a stigma attached to it. But yeah, I think it's so important, so valuable to people's lives. And, if we can push more awareness out there about how much it can benefit people, I think so many more people will be open to the idea of hypnosis and learning about it and having it as a tool in their tool belt, having someone support them and being able to do it themselves when they need it.
Yeah, that's why Lauren and I started this podcast in the from the very start. We wanted to. Our thoughts were, why not hypnosis? Why can't hypnosis be another viable option, just like all the other options that are already out there? you know, and we always came to the conclusion that, you know, it was just because people have this, like you just said, Anna, they have this stigma attached to what hypnosis is and what it isn't, you know. But, you know, as Lauren sees in her practice, I see in my practice, you know, every week we are helping people realize the true power of themselves, you know, allowing someone to walk into their own empowerment and understand that they can change these emotional states. I'm curious for you, you know, because this is a question that we both, you know, Lauren and I get asked very often. What was your experience specifically working with Lauren and going through this hypnosis process?
Yeah. So I had a specific phobia. It was emetophobia. I was very afraid of throwing up. And I mean, it was deeply embedded. I had it since childhood. I honestly can't say when specifically it started, but it got worse as I got older. And like I mentioned earlier, I did try and go through a session of hypnotherapy with a hypnotherapist in London. I mean, it affected my mental well-being, it affected my relationships, my day-to-day habits. So it really impacted my life negatively, and got to a point of being almost like PTSD and traumatic, and my body would physically respond very negatively at the thought of sickness. And so when I met Lauren, you know, I really enjoyed her vibe. Loved how much she put me at ease, and she explains everything, you know, what to expect. You know, I was still very anxious and very nervous about going through the process because
Sure.
you know, I didn't want to relive it and picture, you know, being sick or anything like that. So she just, you know, put me at ease and explained to me it wasn't going to be anything like that. And you know, I had a very, very positive experience with her. And like I mentioned earlier, it was just very simple, very easy. It was just like having a conversation with a friend. It wasn't anything like a traditional talk therapy, which I'm not knocking that at all. You know, that has its place. But it was just very easy, and she put me at ease, and I was very relaxed throughout the whole process, and I could slowly see the benefits. It was a really positive, wonderful experience.
So when, I'm just curious, when did you notice those benefits?
I would say probably a couple weeks after the first session, we had talked, and I guess I wasn't really sure what to expect initially. And so, you know, after we dialogued, she did point out, well, yeah, you've had specific reactions to certain things that we had discussed during our time together, that you're no longer having. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. You know, I didn't really pay as much attention, I guess. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, maybe it's going to be a case of I'll have a session and I'll see a dramatic improvement, and it was more subtle. To be honest, it was more subtle, and I think it just took its effect over time. Over the following weeks after that, I could see more and more improvement. And yeah, it was a dramatic improvement, I would say, from where I was before to where I am now. And I don't identify as somebody who has a phobia now, so that's a huge shift.
So it's amazing though, isn't it, that this is something that you used to have your entire life, almost ever since you were a little child,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden you realize that you've changed this in just a couple of weeks. I mean, you're completely different now.
Yeah.
If Lauren had said that to you, because I love this question, right? If Lauren had said, "Hey, by the way, Anna, it's only going to be a couple of weeks, and you're going to see this complete shift, and you're going to have this transformation, you're going to see things differently and experience things differently, and you've had this your whole life, but it's only going to take a few short weeks," what would you have said?
I probably wouldn't have said it out loud, but in my mind, I would have been like, no, it's going to take me years.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was deeply ingrained and affected every area of my life. So yeah, it's amazing how simple, how quick it really is.
And I love what you said about that expectation. You couldn't help but have this expectation that it had to be obvious, dramatic, a night and day shift. Even though I remember us talking in the pre-talk, and I tried to to sort of tune down that expectation, because expectations are the conscious mind, right? It's thinking sometime in the future, and in your case, years later in the future, I'm going to be this massively different way. But the subconscious doesn't understand, a linear experience. It's more of like an omnipresence. And so if you have the identity as a person having a phobia now, it doesn't understand how it's going to be massively different. Instead, it understands, if I could just be subtly different and this phobia not interfere with everything in my life, but just, confine itself into a slight annoyance instead of a massive issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is useful. And I find that this seems to be a lot of times in session 2, Troy, where I'm talking with people and, sometimes they've experienced already like massive shifts, but sometimes they come in and they say, I don't know if I'm experiencing anything different. And then I start talking to them and I start asking the same questions that we had talked about at session 1. And it's like, well, how are you feeling about this? And what does that make you feel like afterwards? And when they're talking to me and then I say, well, this is what you told me last time. And they're like, wow, I can't even believe that it would have been that dramatic last time, because it doesn't feel that dramatic this time. So it's almost um, helping them realize that they are shifting. And to me, that is a big key of how hypnosis works, is to get that ego to feel strengthened and confident that, yes, I am capable of change. And that massive dramatic shift that I want isn't out, removed in some distant place to the future.
Yeah, I certainly understand and agree with you. It's about making the individual aware that they are making these changes, and the power behind that awareness, the power that they are changing, that they are shifting. I mean, someone who's had, some issue, whatever the issue is, for years or decades even, sometimes it can be difficult at first because they're just so used to having that issue or having that problem or having that challenge that they don't realize that they are making these changes. And so sometimes it's upon, you, Lauren, or myself, or whoever the hypnosis practitioner is, to point out the fact that they are making strides and they are creating that momentum and they are bettering themselves, because it's important that they realize that. It's not like they have to throw, a birthday party with confetti and everything, but they'd have to consciously be aware of themselves making this change, that they are the ones that are doing it, that they're the ones that are realizing their own true personal power. There's a lot of strength in just that understanding, in my opinion.
And that's kind of a lot of work, which is why luckily we support people so they can just be in their daily life of living. And then we're the coaches that remind them, like, oh, and by the way, all the goals that you have in mind are actually getting achieved. So just go ahead and feel that success and achievement right now, because you've earned it. You deserve it. So Anna, I don't know if you know this, but in a way, you have a special relationship. When you and I have worked together, we have seen each other for the 3 sessions we had in 3 different locations. So Troy, she worked with me in my office at the Wellness Center, and then my like full-time office, and then we did a virtual session.
You got the full Lauren Hall experience then, Anna, didn't you?
I did. I was very lucky. Yes.
I mean, that wouldn't be the way I would had, decided it initially, but with scheduling and the things that we needed to do, that was just what worked. So I wanted to hear from you what you thought about the setting. How did that affect or not even have anything to do with the experience that you had?
Yeah, hey, we made it work, right? So I think, it worked. It's obviously it was effective. And I think it's more to do with the practitioner. Honestly, just having your support was invaluable. And, going back to what you mentioned, that, you have to kind of talk to the client and explain, hey, before we met, you were responding to your phobia this way, if that's what you're dealing with. And now you're not. And, it's such a subtle change that you don't necessarily notice it immediately, and it can get overlooked. So things like that, the support that you offer, I think it's more to do with your support and your presence and how you make the person feel, because, ultimately you're not really paying much attention to your environment. So the location itself wasn't a big deal for me personally. And doing it over Zoom, I mean, I think that was our 3rd session, was the Zoom session. So yeah, it was actually one of my favorites, and it was nothing to do with the location, but that was just my personal experience for me. So it all worked. It was great, and I loved it all.
Maybe because that Zoom one, I think you were in your fluffy bed.
I was. I was.
Who wouldn't want
My
that?
blanket.
Yeah. um, one thing that really, guys, when we were talking about coincidences at the beginning of this podcast, Anna, when you started working with me for that phobia, I hadn't heard of it. I mean, I have the DSM-5, but that's that would take me years to read because you kind of fall asleep trying to read all those titles. I had another person that next week come to me for that same request, and she had never considered anything ever being possible to help her with that. So in this, I told you about her. So this wasn't anybody that you knew. It was just ironic that same thing would come in the office just back to back. I mean, do you find that, Troy, like that things come in clusters like that?
I do. I mean, my market obviously is anxiety and stress. So, someone's going to come in and they're going to be anxious over something. But yeah, I do find that, if I have someone that comes in for driving anxiety, for example, I might have one more or two more come in the following week for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's something to be said about that old saying, when it rains, it pours,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do find that. But again, too, I mean, there's also a lot of, for my clientele, right, it's a lot of underlining issues, right? So when someone has anxiety or stress or fear, more or less, they also have some sort of self-confidence issue that needs to be addressed as well, right? So, I mean, they have a lot of underlining themes like that. But
Yeah.
for specific things, I do find that, and it's kind of strange, almost like when you keep looking at the clock and it's like 111 or 333. Sometimes it's kind of like one of those. Well, is it a coincidence? Maybe not. I don't know. But it's just one of those funny things in life, I suppose.
Well, I love, that you talked about the underlying themes. And Anna, I don't know if you've listened to the audios from our hypnosis sessions, but I don't think that I really used the word phobia at all in any of our hypnosis, and really in the pre-talk. We didn't talk much about that. Instead, it was more, success, confidence, happiness, allowance, release. And do you find that if we're talking about it rains, it pours, like now that you have this success with this issue, that other successes in life are starting to like pile in?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel a huge night and day difference in, my self-confidence, and everything feels just easier. And just removing that phobia in itself was huge, because it was at the forefront of everything, like simple decisions. Like at one point I stopped going out to eat because I was afraid of getting food poisoning and getting sick. So removing all those thoughts in my mind has just completely changed everything for me. So deeply affected my mental well-being. And that's, like you said, you didn't have to mention the phobia specifically for it to be effective. And I found such a huge change, a huge positive impact in my life.
Yeah, it was so amazing working with you. So you sounds like are sold on hypnosis. Are you going to do hypnosis again for other things in your life, or are you just doing self-hypnosis?
Always, yes.
Oh.
It's definitely going to be one thing in my tool belt that I will go to every time.
Yeah. Do you tell people that you did hypnosis?
I've told a couple people, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's mixed responses. Some people are still stuck in that mindset of, did she make you cluck like a chicken? What did she make you do? And I have to explain to them, it's just like having a normal conversation, and just
Have your friends listen to Co-Creation Nation. They'll get a better idea of what hypnosis is. I mean, your story is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll definitely recommend your podcast for sure.
My God, Lauren, I just want to keep asking Anna some questions. I love her accent. We spoke about that before we even started on this show, and I'm just like, we have to keep her on and ask her more questions. Your accent is amazing. Amazing.
Thank you. It's changed a little bit in the last 15 years, but I'm trying to still enunciate my T's as much as possible. And
no, it sounds great. Don't change it. Don't change it at all.
When people listening in are going to be jealous too, because we're doing it on Zoom, so we get to see you and how beautiful you are. But yeah, your voice, it has a very soothing quality. It is nice to listen to.
Good. Yeah. It seems to be popular over here.
Do our accents have any taste for you, or
Oh
is it
God,
hard?
yes. I
Yeah.
love the American accent. When I first moved out here, I was super excited. I thought I was going to completely lose my British accent. I thought, oh great, I'm going to have a really cool American accent and go back to England and be really cool. It didn't happen that way, but
Hmm.
throw in a y'all every now and again.
You know, I've had some clients who've come to me to learn foreign language. I haven't had anybody yet to learn different accents, but I've worked with some actresses and things for different effect. So so we'll see. Maybe somebody will reach out to us with that request. You know,
Okay.
give me a British or American accent.
It's amazing how many different things you can do with hypnotherapy.
It's the mind. I mean, yeah, but it is amazing how vast that list is. I've tried to write uses like for a website page, and then I get sidetracked because I'm like, should I categorize them by function or alphabets, or one word for 8 different types of issue? Why don't
Yeah,
we say hypnosis works, and it works with the mind, and your mind knows your goals.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always fascinating. The more I read about hypnotherapy and the different things that it can help with, it's incredible.
It's been a therapy for a lot longer than it's been in the entertainment industry. And one of the things that really sold me on, making this my life's passion and career was the physiological change, hair regrowth, breast lift, eye eyesight repair. I mean, people are using it for anesthesia. I'm already a childbirth educator, so I teach hypnosis techniques for that. So that was to me just really incredible that you could use something um, to navigate the mind to do what the body already wants to do, which is to be healthy.
Mhm. Yeah, I've actually tried the hair regrowth one, but I had used a recording. I mean, I've got roots showing, so it must work.
Yeah, your hair looks amazing.
Since we last saw each other.
I took a course, like a presentation with I don't know what his credentials were, but he was teaching us how to organize case studies, so officiated case studies that we could present to other governing boards to like get these published in journals. And it was a really in depth. I mean, there are so many steps that you would have to do to bring these cases up to the accreditors. So I mean, it's still a part of my mission is to like bring case studies and just share the factual science. I mean, of course, that's the intent of this podcast, the real stories, the real results. But I will expect other dedicated practitioners are going through the red tape and those steps, so that the public starts to understand, like, wow, I could use something like hypnosis that feels really great and is subtle and helps me with multifaceted things, phobias, confidence, better sleep, and hair regrowth or better eyesight. Or I mean, I've worked with people after physical I guess physical therapy. I have some physical therapists that send their clients to me, to get back their range of motion. So it's a really extensive list. That's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I think more people need to know exactly what hypnotherapy can do to benefit their lives. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, Anna, real quick, don't discount yourself in all this too, because I mean, this is something that you suffered from for years and years and years, decades. So, I mean, your character persevered. I mean, you knew that there was a better way out there. You knew that there was a better solution out there for yourself. And I think that that says something about you as a person, wanting to keep searching and keep looking for, there has to be a better way than having to deal with all of this. I mean, this is impacting my life to such a degree. And so I think it's wonderful that you continue to look for that solution. And now you're on a podcast explaining your story. And I know that your story is going to help a lot of people out there because, like you said, I mean, there's this unfortunate stigma attached to hypnosis because people don't realize the power that it can affect in their life. They don't realize the power that it can have in their life.
Yeah.
So it really, for me, hearing your story and understanding the process that it took you to get here. I mean, fighting this uncertainty or fear to just get over this phobia that you had says something about you as a person.
Well, I'm really glad that I did. I'm glad I didn't talk myself out of it this time, because it's made a major shift in my life. And I really do hope this reaches the right people. And I do believe that does happen. Just like you were mentioning coincidences earlier, I don't think it's coincidence. I think this will reach the right people that need to hear it. And this can only expand into something bigger than what it is now.
Yeah. So with that in mind, so if there's someone out there listening to this podcast, right, and listening to your story and your words, right, and they're on the fence about hypnosis, knowing what you know now, that you're a successful person, what would you say to someone like this?
Oh, I would say don't hesitate. Yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of. You know, speak with hypnotherapists like Lauren, who deals specifically, if we're talking about specifically this phobia. You know, Lauren had such an amazing way of putting me at ease and explaining the whole process beforehand, so I knew what to expect. And I mean, I wouldn't hesitate, because it's just not worth going through life. You've got a limited amount of time to live your life. Do what it takes to, you know, be the best that you can be.
Oh, perfect. See, that's why I call her the great Lauren Hall.
It sounds like I'm paying you guys to say these things. These are very generous endorsements, but more for this this way of working with the subconscious that we all obvious are advocates for.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'm so glad that you shared this story. It was such an honor working with you and knowing you, and I'm excited in the future, because similar to you, in my 20s is when spirituality started to come into my like realm, and that was, you know, I did not expect this path as a hypnotist, but I'm very honored in it and am open to all the ongoing alignments and synchronicities that we all will share.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for hopping on with us and our audience and explaining your story. Like I said, I know your story is going to help a lot of people out there listening to this specific podcast, podcast 11. I think it's so cool, by the way, that we that Lauren caught 1111 on podcast 11, and here you are, Anna, sharing the experience with us. So I think that's really awesome. So there's two places that you know, that you can connect with us. The first is over on the website hypnosisinaction.com. Make sure you head over there and get your free hypnosis recordings. Lauren has a hypnosis recording. I myself have a recording. And then let us know what you think about this podcast. Let us know what you would like us to cover and discuss for our future episodes moving forward. And you can do that over at Co-Creation Nation on Facebook. So again, two places to reach out to us. Thank you again, Anna, for everything that you shared with us and our audience. You were absolutely wonderful. I think we should have her back on, Lauren, just so I can hear her accent again.
I was thinking that too. Yeah, we'll see, Anna. Maybe we'll follow up with you shortly and bring you back on and just let you talk.
That'd be fabulous. I'd be happy.
Yeah, I think we just need to let her go, man. I just need to hear her. I don't know what it is. It's like when I hear like a really, like, you know, good British accent like yourself, I'm just like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to talk. That's what the language is supposed to sound like. I get it now.
I think the articulation that you have too, Anna, it's been a pleasure speaking with you and working with you, and we'll have you again. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything you've done for me, Lauren, and thank you so much, Troy, for having me on as well.
Hey, it's our pleasure. And thank you to our audience for listening in. We appreciate all of you. We'll catch you all on the next episode.
Yeah. Bye, Team Nation.
Bye for now.